about communication today, right? That is our topic of our today's session, communication in professional environment. And thinking about communication in business or just at your workplace, whichever that is, school, university, private language school, some courses, maybe a company where you also work. What kind of situations come to your mind? So let's imagine just an average person working somewhere. What kind of communicative situations do they come across when they are at work, so in their office or work environment? Have you got any ideas? Please put them in the chat box. Let's see if we are on the same page, because I've got some of them prepared, just a couple. Maybe you will have many more interesting ideas. All right, so dealing, absolutely, signing up deals, negotiating probably, discussing new ideas, new projects, definitely. I can see many people typing. I know it takes some time, no rush on you. Interviews, yes, thanks a lot, a very good example. Cooperation, absolutely, with colleagues, maybe with partners, with other companies or your clients as well. Absolutely, solving conflicts. Arguing to turn down the climate control. Yes, that's an argument we have in the office a lot, believe me. I understand what you mean. So yeah, definitely, lots of different situations. Starting from just small talk with your colleagues, with your colleague teachers, with the authorities, talking about, I don't know, weather, students, other colleagues, which probably should not be done, but is still done and should be done professionally, right? Excuse me. Then just, troubleshooting, absolutely discussing, working on projects together, collaborating, agree. Giving presentations. Another thing, especially, well, I cannot forget about this point. That's what I basically do every day, giving different kinds of presentation. Today is one of them, actually. And yes, thanks to someone, I don't remember who that was, but you mentioned interviews. Definitely interviewing and taking part in the job interview, being the interviewee, that's a part of business communication. Thanks a lot for your ideas. Absolutely on point. I hope you'll be active in the same way during the whole session. Yeah, another good one, Katerina, absolutely. So for all these situations, to communicate effectively, you need some skills. They will also include just like some personal characteristics, some character traits, right? Probably some hard skills if we talk about like negotiating in business, but also lots of different like soft skills, or maybe even something that is not quite part of verbal communication. So not about the words that we are using, but something else. Can you share your ideas on what kind of skills or what kind of elements of communication can exist in the work environment? Smiling, definitely. So mimics, body language. You can see my gestures. I gesture a lot. That's what I'm used to as a speaker. Not listening, but hearing, definitely. Active listening as a skill, absolutely agree. What else? So gesture. What about intonation? Probably sometimes that can also work. You can tell when the person is being sarcastic by the tone of their voice, right? Sometimes this also helps in communication. Right, so great ideas, everyone. Thanks a lot. What I also meant, yes, Tatiana, thanks a lot. That's my personal favorite. Distance, like I have a pretty big, personal space, so I don't like people standing too close to me. So thanks a lot. That's also part of, that's a skill of communication. Absolutely. What else? Some kind of business etiquette, like how we introduce people. Who do you introduce first? How do you decide? What does it depend on? Age, hierarchy, like position at work, Gender, what do we refer to? This is a skill. This is what you have to know. Some protocols about how the meetings are conducted. For example, start on time, finish on time, right? That is very important, and everybody would agree. Nobody likes meetings that are set to be for 15 minutes but last for an hour. That is part of etiquette. That is a skill, to start on time and to finish on time. Also, creating an agenda correctly, writing minutes after the meeting, again, efficiently, also a skill. Business correspondence. So, of course, it depends on the area you work at. So maybe you're not using that so much, but still, believe it or not, there are lots and lots of rules on how to create business correspondence. Separate rules for printed letters and emails. Like how many blank paragraphs should you leave before or after different parts of the letter or email? It depends. So this is also something you need to know if you want to look professional in your business environment. And then dress code. Of course, we know that it is important to be neat and tidy, like a wrinkled shirt or a wrinkled dress does not quite show your professionalism, probably. And the way you dress, like some people tend to dress maybe over provocatively, which is never welcome in the business environment. All of these things combined are communication skills. And today we are going to talk about lots of them in 3 different areas. So what we are going to look at is, first of all, purposes of communication. Why do we communicate at work? So what can be the reason? Then communication styles. There are several of them, several means of communication, and you would probably choose different ones depending on the purpose. So we'll try to decide which communication styles suit which purposes better. And then we are also going to discuss how to create a perfect message, how to outline the message. What do you need to know before you write your speech or your presentation or an email even? What do you need to know and how to plan effectively? That's what we're going to discuss today. And we start with purposes of communication. So there are actually 4. So probably there are different approaches, of course, but today we're going to discuss 4 different purposes of communication. So now I've got a question for you. Can you guess what those purposes may be? Why do we communicate with other people? Whether they are your students, your colleagues, your clients, your authorities, the headmaster, what may be the reason? To get your point across, absolutely. So probably persuading somebody, maybe just information, giving some information, entertaining, informing, persuading, absolutely. Getting information, definitely. Discussion, to make a colleague make something for you, absolutely. Like a coffee, probably, or a part of a project, could be. Okay, great. So persuasion, once again, providing information. Great, guys. So you are guessing, I think you've guessed 3 out of 4, which is absolutely great. So let's have a look at what I have prepared here for you, and we'll discuss them in more details. So the first one, the easiest one to guess, is informative purpose, right? We communicate to either provide or to receive information. And in terms of your work environment, these can be some informational messages or emails about the upcoming meeting or a change in the schedule of your meetings. This may be supplying data to your clients and, writing out marks for the term or for the topic, like thematical marks for the parents, is also counted as supplying data. That is an informative message. Some corporate rules changing, for example, In our company, the rules have been changed like a month ago, and now everyone in the office is wearing masks. I've got my own one here next to me. I'm just here talking to you because I'm the only one in the room. That's why I can be without a mask. But once I go out the door, mask on. So all of this was informative messaging. Then another very interesting one and very close to teachers is motivational communication, motivational messages. So in terms of school life, what could that be? Can you think about something? What can we talk about, or what can the message be when we are motivating someone? Probably your students, maybe your colleagues. What could that be in terms of your school environment? Because that's the closest one. You can do it, definitely. All those can-do statements, showing them what they can do, definitely. Your ideas matter. Yes, Eliana, thanks a lot. That's very important. I remember my students, how, excited they were when I wrote in their essays, not just comments on mistakes, but just my ideas about what they have been writing about. They even started asking me questions within the essays, because we exchange ideas and they do matter, not only my opinion, but theirs as well. Thanks a lot. That's a very good point. Absolutely. Praising for achievements. Absolutely. And also, I know that at schools, I think in probably universities and in private language schools, it's the same. Teachers and maybe head teachers sometimes go to your classes to have a look at how you're working, all this evaluation and stuff. This also should be motivational, right? So we always need to find some good points, and giving feedback is a completely different story, how the feedback should be provided. So what other examples could there be in the business environment? It may be a speech of promotion. When somebody gets promoted and you talk to the whole office about how and why this happened, that is also motivational. Recognition speech as well, just recognizing somebody's achievements, praise, absolutely, motivational. And have a look at another one, thank you letters. So I never thought about it as being motivational, but the more I do this kind of a session, the more often I actually get emails from participants just saying that the session was interesting, it was informative, it was useful, thanks a lot for doing that, thanks for doing your job. And it is motivating, absolutely. When we see all your comments on Facebook, on Instagram, the stories you post with our sessions that you are watching, it is all motivating us to work even more for you, to work better, to upgrade and to improve all the time. So thanks a lot for all of your thankful letters and messages and emails. We are always happy to receive them, and we do take them into account. You can be sure about that. So that is 2 out of 4. And after such a nice one, I need to introduce a completely different purpose, which is delivering bad news. This is probably the one that, no one likes. Either delivering or receiving bad news is never good, right? Nobody likes that. But still, sometimes it has to be done. Again, in the business environment, it can be receiving or providing a complaint about the service. It can be denial of a loan to the client. It can be a dismissal letter, or just face-to-face talking and firing someone, which is never nice. A business closing speech. And again, at school with students, having to tell them they didn't cope with the task well is never easy, absolutely. But this is one of the purposes why we talk to other people sometimes. And the last one, which you quite, vividly mentioned, was persuasive communication. When you are basically trying to make someone do something for you. The easiest example is a sales pitch, right? When you are getting a call from a bank and they want you to take a credit from them, right? Take a loan. That's a sales pitch, that's persuasive communication. When you try to make your colleague turn off the climate control, that's persuasion. Just communicating, asking for promotion, asking for a higher or a pay raise, right? Asking for higher salary, that is all persuasive communication. So we've got 4 purposes, right? We've got informative, motivational, bad news, and persuasive. So now let's see which different means or styles of communication we have at our hands and how we can use them within those different purposes. So I've collected for you today 5 different communication styles, and we'll discuss each of them and see when we can use them. The first one is face-to-face communication. And of course, in any situation, face-to-face is always your best choice. Whatever it is, because it is the most personal way of communication. You know, I would much rather prefer having you all somewhere here in the audience, seeing your faces, seeing your feedback, being more personal. That is always much better than just talking to the camera. I'm just glad that you can see me. That's at least, you know, half of the audience, half of the communication is done face to face. It is also great because it is easy to build new relationships and also to repair relationships if something went off a little bit. It's great to clarify some confusion, you know, that talking to parents, right? Talking to class teachers sometimes. It's better to do it face to face because anyways, it is always better because you can read those non-verbal cues. Everything that we've talked about before, gestures, intonation, tone of voice, just mimics, your facial expressions, everything just add and add to this communication, which is why face-to-face is always the best bet. But what do you think would be, just for you personally, one purpose? Remember, informative, motivational, bad news, persuasive. Which one of those 4 do you think face-to-face is always the best for? Just for you personally, what do you think? Informative, motivational, bad news, or persuasive? Yeah, you see, it differs from person to person. That's why I said just for you. So we've got persuasion, we've got delivering bad news mentioned in the chat box. And I think probably these would be the 2 that most of you will choose. And again, it depends on the person. I am absolutely sure that persuasion is always done better face-to-face. I would much rather talk to somebody about something I may need face-to-face than on the phone, for example. And bad news, again, it depends. Some people don't like giving bad news face-to-face. Some people don't like receiving bad news face-to-face. Maybe just write me a letter about something going wrong and I will try to figure it out. It is sometimes easier because you need, you know, to postpone your reaction. You should not react like on the spot. So it depends. Absolutely. Thank you for your opinions. They are highly appreciated here in this audience. Number 2, the second style is printed correspondence, printed letters, maybe handwritten, maybe typed. But it is the most formal way of communicating. And it is used in business a lot because it leaves a paper trail. So in terms of business communication, it is always important to have a backup. Something that can be used in some legal term situations, you know, whatever happens, it is great to have a backup. It is also used for cover letters and dismissal letters sometimes. So this is when printed correspondence comes at handy. I can see there are some questions in the chat box. Unfortunately, I cannot always answer them immediately, but I will go back to them at the end of the session, so don't worry about that. The third one, phone call. this is something we are very used to. It is considered the best option when you cannot talk face-to-face, because at least you can hear the voice. And again, it improves communication a lot. Intonation, everything adds to the message that is being transmitted, right? It is fast and it is mostly clear. And have a look at the last point here. It says work landlines are preferred. So this refers to Western society business communication. They mostly work with work landlines. I don't think that here in Ukraine we'll say that we use work landlines a lot. It of course depends on the business, but still most of us probably communicate using a mobile phone, even though you can have your work mobile, right? We sometimes have a personal private mobile phone, mobile number, and another one for your work. But in the Western society, they prefer work landlines. Another one, email. That's my favorite one. You know, it's the most common nowadays. It's what you expect to receive. You subscribe to lots of emails, you know, and you get your emails from the internal education with your certificates. You do expect that. It's a very fast and convenient method to deliver this information to you. It's great because you can add visuals, you can add presentations, any files, certificates as well, anything. And it also leaves a trail. So it is easy to later probably come back to some points that were or were not mentioned and have a proof. Although in Ukraine, what is interesting, in legal terms, email is not a legal evidence. So printed correspondence is considered legal evidence, however, emails are not. But in the US, for example, emails are also considered legal evidence. That is why all the business emailing is, you know, very strictly formatted and checked and proofread lots and lots of times, because anything can be used against you, basically. Thank God it's not like that in Ukraine. And the last one, the fifth one, the shortest, the fastest one, text messaging. Probably I'm not talking about like SMS anymore, but you know, Viber, Telegram, WhatsApp, Facebook messaging, it's very popular, it's incredibly fast, but in work, in professional business terms, it is still considered informal. Even though it is very convenient for reminders, like you get your reminder from Nova Pošta or Ukrpošta that you have a parcel waiting for you. It is great to exchange contact information, like send contacts to each other. It is something we expect, something we receive all the time when we subscribe, when we create all those like client cards in different shops. You get the Viber messages then all the time. We are used to that. It's absolutely convenient. Still, it is considered informal in terms of business-to-business communication. So these are the 5 styles. Face-to-face, the best one usually. Phone call, second best, let's say so. Printed correspondence versus email. And the shortest one, text messages. So now that we've discussed the purposes of why we communicate, and we know how we can communicate, by which means, it's time for us to think about this planning of the message. So how do we plan? What do we start with? What do we need to know? And this whole process is called outlining the message, create the outline. It consists of several steps. I'm just going to focus on the first 4 of them. The very, very first one, believe it or not, is something that we started with today, identifying the purpose of the message. Why do you need to communicate this information? Because depending on the purpose, the means of communicating will be different. You will decide to talk face-to-face, to give a presentation face-to-face, or to write an email to your students' parents, or to write a quick Viber message to your colleague. It depends on the purpose all the time. Step 2, know your audience. You need to know who you are talking to because it improves the communication a lot. And this knowing your audience includes some demographic knowledge. Like, what do you think? Now it's a question for you guys. What do you think is this demographic kind of information you may want to know and sometimes need to know about your audience to make your message more, I don't know, more influential, probably, better understood? What do you think? Age. Absolutely. We know delivering the same grammar topic or vocabulary just topic to a 10-year-old and 16-year-old, two completely different ways. Nationality, cultural differences definitely matter. You need to know what to do, what not to do, what to say and what not to say, depending on the cultural situation. Profession. Absolutely. Do you see, today we are talking about business communication, but I continue making references to your life at school because I know that most of you are teachers. That is why it's not so much about business for you, like the office environment like we have here, but I know your profession, I know what you have to do, how you work, in which environment, so I can make references which makes us like feel closer to each other. Language skills, absolutely. So which language do you use to deliver presentation? I know most of you are teachers of English, which is why I'm talking to you in English. If this were a session for just general public, I would probably switch to Ukrainian, definitely. So lots of things to know, absolutely. Then, step 3, choose delivery method. So choose the style. Now that I know why I'm talking to you, I want to discuss the communication styles with you. I know you're teachers, so I need to choose how to talk to you. I would, of course, choose a seminar talking face-to-face or a workshop. But in the current situation, my delivery method will be an online session, a webinar here today. And so that's just a very quick example. And step 4, pre-writing the outline, pre-writing, planning the message. So knowing what you want to start with, what you want to say at the end, maybe writing down some quotes if you're going to use them, some references, that's very important. Sometimes you may even want someone else to read this outline to see and maybe just give you some feedback, some ideas. You know, most of our sessions we do with internal education, we always have something that's called demo. So we always demonstrate all of our webinars to each other. We try out all the activities, we do everything to make sure it's interesting, it's interactive, it's fun and useful, which is why usually people like it, because it's all tried here beforehand. You know, on these like we are lab mice for each other here at Internal Education. So this is basically the first 4 steps of how to create a perfect message. You start with identifying in your head just why are you communicating this information? Who are you talking to? Number 2. Then how would you do that? Step 3. And then do the planning. So this is what we're going to talk about today. The purposes of communication, remember 4 of them: motivational, persuasion, bad news, and informative. Communication styles or means, we've discussed 5 of them, even though there may be more. We did talk about webinars there. And how to plan. And now I also want to, yes, of course, Juliana, you can leave all your questions in the chat box. I will go back to them. Don't worry. So now what I want to do is to share one more tip with you today. And this is something that's called a perfect speech recipe. So whenever you have to deliver a speech to an audience via whether it's face-to-face or via online resources. There is this perfect speech recipe. It consists of 3 steps, and maybe you have seen it somewhere already, but I just want to make sure that everybody here in this room knows what it's about. So 3 easy steps. Step 1, tell your audience what you are going to tell them about. So just a little glimpse in the future. What is the topic? Then step 2, actually tell them your information. And step 3, tell them what you have told them. So summing up on what has been discussed just previously. You see, very easy, very simple, and I'm sure if you are looking at this right now, thinking about what has just happened in our session, in our webinar. This is something we use in all our sessions here at Internal Education all the time. And for that, I've got this agenda slide, right? I started with the agenda slide, telling you about what we are going to discuss. Then we went through all of these 3 main points, and then at the end, I summarized it once again on the same agenda slide. It's a very easy and simple tip, but it's very useful because it focuses your audience on what you want them to remember. And this is something we use all the time. You can steal that, you can use it within your own professional experience. I'm sure it will help you. So, we've discussed lots of interesting things today, and I'm going to answer some questions at the end. I hope I can answer them because I'm not like totally a professional in like business or in psychology, but the ideas I just shown you today, I actually took from the course which is called Communication Skills for Business. So you can see from the title, from the name of the course, this is what was the topic of our today's session. Soft skills, communication skills you need at work, whichever environment you work at. So what is the course about? It's a learning course on an average like B2 level of English probably. It consists of 6 different modules in which you will learn lots of useful tips and ideas. I've just shown you some of them. I'm going to hint on some other in just like 2 minutes. This whole course is video lessons done by an amazing speaker, Jennifer Stubblefield. I really, really like her as a speaker. I know she's a teacher and she has won lots of awards in America for her teaching. Like we have Вчитель року. Well, they have something similar. So she's an amazing, absolutely teacher and speaker. I'm sure you would love her, just listening to her, seeing how she speaks, what she does with her intonation, how she gestures, just everything is just on point. Then there is a workbook with some projects for you to work at while you're watching the videos. So she'll deliver some information and then you try it out in the real life. And there is also a glossary with flashcards that you can use to remember and to learn some terms that she's using within the course. So what will you learn in the course apart from the ideas I just gave you? Well, for example, how to write a perfect resume. Yes, actually, Valentina, I think she is. I think that one of her regalia is also not only teaching at the school, because she's a teacher in high school, but I think she also does some business workshops as well, which is why she's the author of this course. So I think she is. For example, like one topic, how to create a perfect resume. There are lots of ideas. I just want to hint you on one of them. What do you think? Put it in the chat box. What do you think you should not put on your resume? And why? So we'll discuss why. Why is obvious, but which information about yourself should you not put on the resume? It's a very interesting thing because it's absolutely different in different countries, and you will see it in a moment. Marital status, agree, absolutely. Nobody should care, right? What's the difference? What's the point of asking? Absolutely agree. Actually, it is something that should not be asked on the interview as well, and she talks about it in the course. Gender, definitely. Hobbies, because not relevant information. Bad habits, not relevant, absolutely. So you see, seminars and webinars and workshops, yeah, like a list of 100 of webinars, nobody will look at that, definitely. Thanks a lot, Anna, for mentioning that. Personal information, age, gender, and believe it or not, picture. So this is something that is expected and is on all the resumes here in Ukraine. I'm thinking about my resume. I do have my picture in there. I definitely have my gender. I have my date of birth, so they can count my age. But this is something they never recommend doing, at least in the Western society, because all of this, including religion, absolutely, can be what? Can be a reason, can be a ground for discrimination. And we don't want that. We don't want to be discriminated in getting a job because we are 2 years older or younger than they think the person they need should be, right? So all of this information in America is considered unnecessary, and nobody should bother about that on your resume. It's interesting, Kate. So in Germany, they do have to put that. Well, again, as I said, it depends on the country. It depends on the cultural differences. We started talking about that today as well. Interview tips. Again, when do you come to the interview? What should you take with you? Which kind of questions should you ask? What should you never do on the interview? This is all discussed in this module. Then, working with feedback, giving feedback. How is the perfect feedback given? The sandwich approach. How to recognize indirect feedback from people. When you see somebody on your lesson sitting like this or sleeping, that's indirect feedback. How to analyze that, how to deal with it, how to draw conclusions. This is another topic. Presentation tips. Where to stand, who to look at, for how long, how many slides to have, which phones should you have in your slides. That is also important. How many phones, how many colors, everything matters. So all of this and much, much more you can learn from this course, Communication Skills for Business. And now you may be wondering, so we are talking about soft skills, communication, work environment today. But remember, at the beginning, we decided that we know this session today is part of цифрові технології theme in our program. So why is this topic here? Why is this webinar done by me in this particular theme? Well, because this course is actually just one product of a huge company called Certiport. And Certiport is the new partner of the internal education, which we're very proud of. It's our new huge project. And the bigger, let's say, area of Certiport business is connected with IT. Which is why this webinar is in цифрові технології. Because Certiport was founded in 1997, more than 20 years ago, and it started creating international examinations for other companies. For example, the very first company they started working with was Microsoft. And this is why you can see some webinars done by me connected with Microsoft, because Microsoft is another new partner of the internal education. So this year we signed 2 partnership agreements with Certiport and with Microsoft. And now we work together, providing all these information courses and examinations for teachers, and not only teachers, but all our audience here in Ukraine. Why internal education? Why Certiport? Well, because since 2012, Certiport is actually part of Pearson. And as you know, and you can see from the banner behind me, the internal education is the exclusive representative of everything Pearson here in Ukraine, which is why now we also represent Certiport products as well. And saying it's a huge company, I'm not, joking, absolutely. It actually delivers more than 3 million international exams worldwide every single year. That's a huge number. I think that only like English exams like IELTS probably can be compared to that, even though I have no statistics on it, so I can't tell you. But 3 million is a huge number. And this company actually operates in 153 countries around the world and has more than 14,000 test centers. And I really personally like these numbers, 153, 14,000, because we are now one of them. We are now one of those 153 countries, and we have our own authorized testing center here in Kiev. You can see our webpage on the slide right now. You can screen the QR code, or I will get back to it at the end, so don't worry, you will not miss the links. But the internal education now is the authorized Certiport testing center, which means that you can take all of these wonderful exams, Microsoft, Adobe, Apple, there are lots of them. You can take them all here at our testing center. And what you will like as teachers about Certiport, and what I like as a former teacher, of course, is that it is not only about tests. It's not just certification. It all starts with the first step, which is learning. So Certiport always provides you with learning materials to gain new skills. Maybe some of you want to learn how to use Photoshop or Adobe Premiere, to work with videos. Maybe you like to learn programming just for you as a hobby. You can do that with Certiport. You learn, you gain new skills. Then you can go and practice. You can do a practice test, which is like a mock exam to learn the format. Again, you as teachers understand, knowing the format of the test is half of your success, basically. And yes, Valentina, the link will be in the chat box in a moment. Okay, so absolutely. And then you go and certify. So you go and take this international exam at, for example, our test center, and you get your international certificate, recognized absolutely everywhere. And if it's like Microsoft, you will have Microsoft on it. And that's, that's a level, that's a brand. But it is the same with communication skills for business, the course we were discussing today. We've got this learning course, which you can do anytime, it's online. We've got a practice test to learn the format and an international exam to get your certificate. It's very interesting. The course is amazing. The certificate looks great. I really like it, having it in my portfolio, as well as some of my colleagues, for example, like Yulia Karpenko, who is just moderating me right now, my colleague in the Certiport project. She can also tell you that the course is amazing.